All right, we're here at my outdoor worm bin, and last time we were in here was 19 days ago. So first thing you can tell is that there's a lot of castings on top, and that is a good indication that they are really ready to be fed. So one of the things we're going to do today is, at the request of my mother, we are going to give them a cool little experiment with their food, so stick around for that. Now right away, one of the things I'm pretty impressed with is these are the pine needles that we put in here, and they are like a deep brown. They're still just a little bit crunchy, but they're a lot more pliable than they were before. And we're going to go ahead and put in a bunch more, and we're going to cut them up. But let's go ahead and dig down and see if any of that food is left, and maybe update some of the stuff that we put in here, like a mango seed, and we also have some macro algae chaeto. But right away, when I kind of pull up, I am feeling the pine needles, and I'm seeing all kinds of worms inside and out of them. So they seem to be pretty happy. Now this right here is something. It looks to me like an apple, and surprisingly, apples have been taking a little bit longer than normal in my worm bins, and I think that's because typically I'll have them kind of broken up or chopped up, and I put halves in lately, so it's taking them just a little bit longer, and you can see them kind of getting to it on the outside. Now apples can ferment, so I would suggest cutting them up, and yeah, check that out. I'm just going to break it up a little bit for them so in the future they can get to it. They certainly do enjoy them, but you're putting a bunch of apples in, maybe cut them up or just put a few in at a time. So let's keep digging around here, and I'm not sure if we're going to see that chaeto. We put it in frozen, so I think that is going to help break it down. And I had a great comment by Sandra over at Nana's Worms and Garden, and she had listed a couple of scientific studies where they looked at the antimicrobial properties of chaeto, and it actually prevents or kills some of the bacteria that affects marine life. So don't know if that had any issues of why the chaeto lasted a little bit longer than I expected, but man, I'm just pulling through here, and I am seeing just so many castings, almost like I could just harvest the whole bin. But we didn't harvest today because it had been so long, and I'm trying to bulk it up. So something I'm going to do a little bit differently, and real quick, let's look at this mango, because I think last time I had just breached it for the first time, and yep, little bit of worms in there, not too many, but we'll keep updating that. But anyway, I think one of the things I'm going to do at the suggestion of the executive producer, who's my wife Autumn, is I'm going to mix in the bedding before I do anything else, because quite honestly, there is hardly anything in here. Oh, check this out. That right there, we put in a bunch of cantaloupe. In fact, last time we put in some lettuce stalks, some cucumber, lots of cantaloupe, and that's why you're seeing this skin right here. It's really neat, almost like a cross hatch, and they eventually will get to it. But we also put in watermelon rinds, red onion ends, some strawberries, and of course our amendments. But yeah, let's go ahead and do that. Let's add in a bunch of our bedding and just kind of mix it around and try and bulk up the volume that way, because wow, quite frankly, this is just amazing. Lots of castings. In fact, next time I think what I might do is dump this whole thing out and maybe try and get as much worms in one spot and weigh them out and kind of guesstimate how many are in there. Let's do that. Let's put in the bedding. So there we go. We'll just put a ton in right here for bulk. And one of the suggestions I also got is to maybe water this in. A lot of times with this bin, after I put in all this dry bedding, I water it in right after I do my videos. And a couple of people suggested that I do it over my garden. And I just don't know why I hadn't thought of that before, because anything that kind of leaks out of here is going to be great stuff for the garden, almost like a quick worm tea. So I think I'm going to do that, because even though I'm mixing it up and the moisture level of this bin is perfect, adding all this dry bedding is certainly going to change that moisture to the drier side. All right, let's add some more. There we go, a bunch more. And that was a great suggestion, executive producer. I really appreciate that, because this is looking good. It's just going to take me a while, so I'm just going to dig it in. So some of you may be wondering why I didn't just harvest, but Florida has two distinct growing seasons, and we're just starting our first one. I have about 40 pounds of castings saved up, so I don't need these right now. But I am going to harvest next time, and we should get quite a bit out of it. Now here's just the pine needles, and I'm cutting them up because I had another commenter that mentioned that, you know, there's a lot of waxy material or something that kind of prevents water from getting into the pine needles, but if we break them open like that, then microbes and moisture, etc., can get inside of them. So there we go. All right, so now for our experiment. Because all three of our sons have moved out, we don't have as many food scraps or cardboard to shred up and stuff for our worm bins. So my mom has been supplying us with some. And since she's such a great mother and has been fantastic about feeding her grandworms, she did ask me to try a little experiment where I shove food inside this kind of cross-hatched cardboard packaging that she's given us. So this is for you, and I'm just gonna shove them in here. And that's kind of be our feeding. I'm going to add a little bit more, and actually a lot more. Put that on there, and we'll just see how the worms do with, maybe they'll break this cross-hashed cardboard packaging up faster with all that food in there. So we'll see how that goes. Now let's go ahead and go in with our amendments, and this is some worm chow, and it's just some expired grains for the pantry, but I also had dehydrated some food for our tiny worm bin as I was trying to dry it out as it got closer to harvest. So that's mixed in with the worm chow, and then this is just some spent coffee and tea grounds that we're going to add as more food for them, and just another great way to get some more nitrogen into my garden. And then finally, what I have found to be a worm favorite is crushed eggshells, or pulverized. I just blend them up in my magic bullet blender and gets them really fine so that they can use them in their gizzard to help make the food particles smaller for them. So as we were digging around, I didn't see any of that Cheeto, so I think just like all this other food that I've put in here and frozen, freezing up that macroalgae is the way to go. So we're going to go ahead and bury this up just like this, and then we're going to add even more shredded cardboard bedding for them. And this should really bulk up this bin. Now, I do not suggest putting dry bedding into any of your bins. This is a unique situation. This is an outdoor bin in Florida. Because of the nature of this bin being fabric, it drains out the water pretty well. So I can just put in dry bedding like this and then soak it on through. And like I said, I'm going to start doing that over my garden now so that any of that liquid that's just full of good nutrients and microbes from this worm bin will get into my garden. So I think this is going to be great. We're going to try and check in on this in another like 7 to 10 days. I always say that, and this one for some reason just goes long because if there's a thunderstorm or rainstorm, I just can't do a video or feed it. So I hope you're having a great day. I hope your worm bins are doing well. So happy vermicomposting, everybody. Take care now.